Welcome to Zone 3 Canada, where it is constantly cold, rainy, and miserable outside. Supposedly it's summer, but you would never be able to guess it. In today's video, we're going to talk about seed starting in July, because the reality of seed starting in July is that you have three kind of options. One, opt out entirely and protect your soil going forward. Two, kind of start some new seeds, but nothing too stressful. Three, dig in deeper and start that whole fall winter garden thing. The geese are flying south already. I don't blame them. I would too. I was actually debating vacationing in Florida for funsies this summer because who wants to go to the lake in this weather? So this bed here is a great example of a bed that is soon to be empty. And the reason for that is because I do have kale here that I could leave and it could let it get bigger, or I could harvest and simply rip out. I do have some lettuce in here. I've got some dill back here that I could harvest. And I have other various beds that kind of fall into the same category, garlic, that sort of thing, where everything is about to get harvested and then it leaves plain old soil in its place or just some mulch. Now, here's the thing. When we often think of plants and soil and their relationship to each other, we think of take, take, take. We don't usually look at it from give, give, give. Rightfully so, because we're constantly talking about fertilizer and water and adding and et cetera and so forth. But the truth here is that plant roots do give. They don't always take. So, for example, there's something called root exudates. Root exudates feed the soil and they feed the microbes that then feed the soil, which then in turn will feed your plants in the future. You also just have natural root movement through the soil, and that can help with aggregation, soil structure, that sort of thing. So I could go into a whole host of things as in regards to what plants give soil, not just what they take from soil. But the ultimate takeaway I want you to take from this video is that you want to ensure that there's always a crop in place. So whether you take, I'm done with this shit method, I kind of still want to garden-ish method, or I want to dig in deep and go all full fall winter mode, regardless of that, every single one of these will involve putting something in the place of what is about to be ripped out. So group number one is harvest before frost group. This can include things like carrots, beets, cilantro, bok choy, any sort of herb that you would like to go for. A lot of those leafy green and root vegetables with very quick turnaround times. And the reason for this is because days to harvest is somewhere between 30 to 50, which we can still accomplish in our cold climate. And if we can't hit it dead on, what we can do at the very least is protect our garden in some way to allow us to do that in the future. Now, group two is a group of crops that you will need to protect into those winter months and which will continue to grow into the winter months. And I'm talking very much so the winter months. Now, here's the thing. We need to protect them when it really begins to frost up, but we don't have to protect them at 0 or -1 even. They're generally okay. The thing here I really want you to consider is if you truly do enjoy gardening, or if you're using gardening to actually replace your grocery bill and you want to be successful at it, and you are in a cold climate in northern US, Europe, Canada, this year is the year to try this. The reason being is I don't think you're going to need much for infrastructure for making this happen. The reason for that is because of this whole super El Nino thing. So we're scheduled to have a very kind of wet, cold, clammy July and August with a hot September, November, December. Like we're talking green lawns at Christmas type thing, which in turn doesn't mean that the night times aren't going to get cold. They will, but it's a very good way for you to experience all the ins and outs that come with that kind of fall winter gardening. So for example, we have reduced hours of light. Now this reduced hours of light can cause a lot of issues in regards to flowering and fruiting and producing anything. So this is the reason for why things like cucumbers or squash or tomatoes generally aren't planted now for the winter months. It's also the reason for why you don't see people in California growing tomatoes in the middle of December. Yes, their climate could handle it. Yes, their climate could allow for it. It's the hours of light that don't. So what we want to go for is something that actually prefers lesser hours of light and in turn actually won't flower, which is what we want to happen to ensure that we get a harvest. So great examples of this can include things like broccoli, cauliflower. There are various different types of spinach that I actually heavily encourage you to grow, because these guys, if you grow them, you can harvest from them now until the snow hits, and then they will actually overwinter under the snowbank. It sounds crazy. And then when it melts, they will be the first thing that's green, particularly in the event that we have a very mild winter, which is what we are expecting to have. Now, there are other ones, like, for example, we have things like Brussels sprout or cabbage. These I find don't produce as well in these fall winter months because of that lack of sunlight. So I tend to steer away from them, but you can try them if you believe you have enough light. You're talking to a girl who has such little light that kohlrabi over there is quite literally leaning this direction in the middle of summer, solely because there's no light in this part of the backyard. So they're leaning towards it as much as they possibly can. So if you think you have the heat, you think you have the sunlight to make that happen, then please do. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to start these seeds, they need to be started in seed cells. I would not start them in the soil. Your soil in a normal summer is going to be much too warm and actually will cause kind of really leggy, elongated seedlings, which is not what we want in the case of these crops in particular. We want short and stout whenever possible. Not only that, when they are seedlings, that heat, if there is a heat wave that does hit, fingers crossed, it also will translate into bolting or just an overshot in growth. And we want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So the best way to actually go about avoiding this is to start them indoors. Indoors, I mean, it's not going to be super cold, but it's also not going to be super hot. You can control the amount of light, you can control the amount of heat, you can control the amount of water. The alternative here is a greenhouse, but the greenhouse needs to, with absolute certainty, have some sort of airflow or air conditioning going on in it in order to allow for this to happen. All that being said, I would personally start these indoors. And I would keep them kind of as seedlings indoors as long as possible, preferably into August. And I know you're thinking like, wow, that's such a long ways away. I'm going to have huge seedlings. You're not. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it's only 4 weeks away. And you're looking at 2 weeks to germinate. Then you're looking at kind of 2 to 3 weeks of kind of that really awkward baby seedling stage inside the seed cells. And then you might bump up around week 4 or 5. So now we're talking mid to late August. So by the time you go to transplant outdoors, we're expecting late August, early September. I know. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but that is the reality and definitely something you should give a shot. Like I said, you may need infrastructure. You might. But if you want to try it without infrastructure or with like bed sheets and blankets and stuff you have laying around the house, this is the year to do it. So give it a shot if you want to. Now, if you are so lazy that you just are like, absolutely no, I can't do it. But I don't want bare soil and I want to keep my soil healthy. Your alternative is cover crops. Now, please hear me out here when I say this. If you go this route, you're going to get the soil building. You're going to get the shading out of weeds. You are going to get the root exudates feeding the microbes in the soil. And overall, you're going to get more experience in gardening if you're on the newer edge of this. The key here is that you start them sooner rather than later. When it comes to cover crops in a cold climate, we're talking about sowing now. We're not talking about sowing in the fall. Like when we typically think of a cover crop, we obviously think of it as like tomatoes come off, cover crop goes on. And in a normal situation, in a farming situation, yes, absolutely, that's exactly how it plays out. But here in Canada, that's not the case. What happens instead is we're talking about things like the lettuce, the garlic, the onions, the herbs, the kohlrabi, all that sort of stuff getting harvested up, and then the cover crop being put on in July, allowing it time to germinate. And the idea here is we don't want it to set seed. We literally just want it to grow. And this little bit of establishment that takes place helps us. And all we need to do is kind of kill it off in the fall or the spring. And that then in turn allows us to plant into that space with, again, less weed competition, still very actively, microbially active soil because microbes have been eating the root exudates. You've been having to water it despite the fact that there's nothing cherished on it. But if you needed to, you would water it. And you guys kind of get the idea. So this is just a handful of ideas. Oats, buckwheat are 2 great versions of cover crops. And I've kind of gone into the science of which cover crop to grow and why. I have a whole video on that, so go check that out. There's also things like peas, for example, as well as clover. Now, crimson clover and peas are 2 that you definitely could do, and there's nothing wrong with doing them. However, I don't find them to be as vivacious in our cold climate as the buckwheat and the oats can be. So just keep that kind of in the back of your head when you're choosing what to go with. The sugar peas or the field peas, those ones, just again, keep in the back of your mind, the purpose of this is not necessarily to get any peas off of it. You're lucky if they flower. They're definitely not going to set pods for you. So that's the goal again, is just that root biomass below ground. But with that being said, I hope this video helped you guys out. If you want to know what the most ridiculous tomato hack is on planet Earth, this is the video for you. It is the most common, well-touted one that is an absolute mistake to follow. And that is what Google says you should watch next. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.